Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with our level 50 Brute Quintessence Lass, who has 39 million XP earned and 0 XP to go to get to the next level because we are 50th level and that's the maximum level. We're on our final story arc for Harvey Mailer, who tells us that he wants us to bring the monocle that we have from Percy Winkley to Penelope Inn to take a look at it. So we're going to take this monocle to Independence Port to Penelope Inn. I think we have a ways to go yet with this story arc, so there will be a few more episodes with this character, but we are winding down. I really enjoyed Quintessence Lass. I think she's an awesome character. I've absolutely loved Dark Melee and Energy Aura. I still like Martial Arts Super Reflex the best, but this has been my second favorite character that I've played in City of Heroes. It's been a lot of fun. So, the monocle can allow us to read minds more easily than before, because she has adjusted it. And then he tells us Penelope Inn has done her thing. You need to get to the psychic plane and read Vanessa's thoughts. So now we're going to go to Boomtown, and I will pause it and bring you back when we are at the mission door. Alright, we are back. And we are heading in to investigate Vanessas Memories. And I don't know why this just didn't send us to a train station since it is an outdoor mission. We're going to go ahead and get the outline, and then we will take a look at where we can find her memories. I think her memories might be actual characters, like kidnapped victims, essentially. But first, we're going to just outline things, and hopefully, as we do, maybe it'll get a little lighter, because it's going to be a pain in the neck to try and hunt for these memories in the dark. Especially now, at this time of day in real life, it is early morning and the sun is coming through my already blinded window because it just gets that way up here, so there's a lot of ambient light, so it's going to be hard for me to see the memories from a distance if it doesn't get a little lighter here. There are some video games, not MMOs, but regular video games like SimCity and stuff, where you can, and City Skylines, where you can just tell it don't do day-night cycles because the developers recognize that sometimes it's hard. I kind of wish you could turn them off here. If like I wouldn't leave them off all the time, but for something like this, I would turn it off. I usually try looking against the rocks because a lot of times kidnapped victims are held up against the rocks. Again, very hard to see in the ambient light here. This may be one of these where I have to just fight everybody until I get the targets. Here we go. So this is her memory from the 90s, right? And we're gonna find memories from like 98, 2002, and 89 or something like that. I don't think they go past like 2002 or 3 because that's when the game was made in 2004. So depending on when this story arc was made, it wouldn't go past there. And, whoa, that's the only memory? I suspect there will be more because I could swear there was one from the 2000s. So we got our 1998 memory, which says that she saved up for a trip and went to Italy. So now we will talk to Harvey, and he says, okay, we've learned a lot. We found about 1998. Go learn more. So now we're going to go to Founders Falls, and I will just use Ouroboros for that. Again, I don't know why these aren't just board the train missions, because they make you go to a mission door and then you're just outside anyway. And I wonder if that's an oversight on their part, or if maybe, I'm not sure how this worked, but I wonder if initially the outdoor missions were in mission doors and then they changed them to be boarding the train. Outdoor missions were not part of the original release. And I wonder if actually maybe alternatively these were indoor missions and they just coded them as outdoor missions instead with the outdoor maps, but didn't change the mission doors. So now we need to find her next memory. Sort of take a look here. Often they are along the edges, up against rocks, but sometimes not, depending on, where the spawn is. So as we go, let's continue our discussions of role-playing games, and this came up a while ago. I can't remember exactly where, but I've certainly encountered it as a game master as well. And this was a discussion. So I remember now. They were talking about some ability that and how it would be interpreted for one of the character classes in D&D. And I can't remember which character class. It was a warlock or something. Let's say it was a warlock. It doesn't matter. And the one player was saying that his DM had interpreted the power a certain way. And it wasn't the right way to interpret the power because it made whatever this ability was far too powerful, right? It was overpowered. And it was clearly so. And he said, sure, warlocks will love it, but the DM is going to hate it and all the other players are going to hate it. And so the basic topic here is if one particular character is overpowered, and here's our memory, if one particular character is overpowered, the idea that the player of that character will love it and everybody else will hate it. And this is pretty common, right? I've talked about it in Champions, how I had friends who went past the active point cap for our Champions game because they wanted to be more powerful. And, they loved it, and I and the other players hated it. And GMs hated it, except for them, right? They didn't have to face it as GMs because they played their own characters as NPCs. So they didn't mind it. And so this is the idea that players, and Gary Gygax talks about this in the Dungeon Master's Guide, that players will always try to be more powerful than they should be. They will always push to get more power, and the DM needs to resist this because it will unbalance and break the game. And if an individual player is always pushing for more power and gets it, this one person was saying, he'll be happy and everyone else will be miserable. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But first, let's talk to Harvey Mailer. So we found this other memory. So Vanessa DeVore never planned to be evil. She was tricked by the soul of somebody else. Go into the psychic plane to learn more. So now we're going to Talos Island. So what I said in the thread and what I stand by is a good player, and I mean not a moral player, but a good player and someone who understands role-playing games and understands how these things work. A good player should not want to be overpowered. And a good player shouldn't be happy to have something that they know is making the DM and the other players miserable. Right? And this goes back to something I've been saying over and over again. This is a cooperative game, whether it's D&D or Champions or whether you're in a guild, right? It's a cooperative game. If you want something that's overpowered, that ends up making it fun for you but miserable for everybody else, you're going to end up with people not wanting to play with you or not wanting to play the game at all, right? And then you don't have anybody to play with, right? You shouldn't want to be overpowered because it's going to make the game too easy. It's going to make you and everybody else bored, even if you like it easy and you don't get bored because you like running roughshod over the campaign and sleepwalking through everything. The other players may not want it to be this easy, and they may get bored. And if they're bored, they're not going to want to play. Why would you show up to play something that's boring you? I don't go places that bore me, right? I find every possible excuse I can that's legitimate but still, an excuse to get out of committee meetings at my university. Why? Because nothing gets done. They're incredibly boring. They're often quite counterproductive, and I'm happy to be in daylight now. It's boring. I don't want to be there. So I try to find ways not to be there, and the only reason I go to many of them, is most of them, is because I am obligated to go by my job. But you're not obligated to go to a D&D session. And so if you're as bored in your D&D session as I am in my meetings, and you're not required by your contract to go there, and you're not being paid to go there the way I am, right? Why would you go? So you don't want to be the guy who's being so overpowered that you're making the other players miserable or making the other players bored, because you're going to eventually not be able to play anymore. The other players aren't going to want to participate in your little ego exercise. So it's really important as a player, and if you want to be a good player, you should always be thinking, even if you're not the DM, you should still be thinking like a DM in the sense of thinking about the good of the group, right? What is good for you and all of the other players, right? Is it actually good for the group for you to have read this module that the DM is running and to know all the answers? It's probably not good for the group. The other players are going to resent it. The DM is going to resent it. He spent money on this module and you already know everything. And some people don't care. I have actually one of my players, and she doesn't understand this. Like, it's her own mom, but she's like always got to stay away from her mom if she doesn't want spoilers, because her mom doesn't care. Her mother reads the last chapter of a book before starting it to see if she's going to like it. She wants to make sure she likes the ending. So it's a murder mystery. She already knows who did it. She reads the ending. And this friend of mine who plays D&D with us, like, she and I like a mystery series, and she's like, after she got interested, she said, I'm going to tell my mother because I think my mother will like. It's like period piece. It's set in the 1800s, late 18, early 1900s, and she said, I think my mom will like that. But she said, I know what she's going to do. She's going to read the ending. And she said the reason she told her about this is this particular mystery series, the Gaslight Mysteries. The mysteries are okay. They're not Agatha Christie brain treat teasers, right? You can usually figure out who did it. I usually can. It's usually not super hard to figure out, but that's not what's good about the books. They're good because of the characters and the story, and it doesn't matter if you figure out the mystery ahead of time. And she and I have reread them all multiple times because they're so good. And so she said, I'm going to tell my mother about these because it doesn't really matter that much. And she still will enjoy the rest of the story. But her mom will, look at the ending of a book and will tell her, oh, it ends this way. And she's like, Mom, why are you telling me this? It ruins it. And her mother legit doesn't understand. This is a 2002 memory. Doesn't understand why it spoils it for the daughter, because it doesn't spoil it for her. Right? And so there are some people who may feel like, oh, it's no big deal. I read the module. Who cares? I can still enjoy. Heck, there's somebody on D&D Beyond right now saying, what do I do? How should I change Lost Minds of Phandelver? He's got players who've played the first 2 chapters of it already. I don't know how many chapters there are, because even though I own it, and I've kind of flipped through it a little bit because I know someday I might play it, I haven't read it carefully. I know a little bit about it because you kind of can't, if you read the D&D Beyond forums, completely escape what it's about. But I haven't read it, even though I own it, because that would ruin it, right? And so this is what the DM is saying. I don't want it to be ruined. I have players who played the first 2 chapters. What can I do to spice it up, to change it around, and still be able to play the rest of the module as written, so that they don't already know what's happening going in, so that they can be surprised? Because one of the joys of D&D is supposed to be being surprised. Even as a DM, you want to be surprised by some of the solutions your characters come up with. That's why Matt Colville says he doesn't like to come up with how they're going to solve a problem before, he just puts the problem in front of them, kind of like I did with my players in the Shrine of the Kuatoa, and say, let's see how they solve it. So you want to be surprised, but some people, I guess, don't care about that. They don't maybe like to be surprised, or need to be surprised, or want to be surprised. So there are people who will buy all the modules and read them, and then be like, yeah, sure, I'll play it. It's a really cool module. I've read it from cover to cover. It's awesome. What do you mean you want to play it? You've already read it. For some people, it doesn't matter. For other people, it will, right? And if you're going to sit there and spoil it for them, or even other players who have the knowledge you've already played and run multiple times, Curse of Strahd, and now you're playing it again, and they don't know anything about it, and they feel weird about it, right? Because you already know everything, and they feel like they're at a disadvantage now, and that they're inferior in some way. They don't like it, right? A lot of players don't like knowing that somebody else already knows the ending of this module, even if they're not spoiling it by telling everybody else. And so this can lead to a lot of difficulties when you're playing. And so you have to be very careful. If you're the person who has the most power or knows the most stuff, you have what other players don't have, you could be ruining the experience for other people without meaning to. And that's why I think a good player does not overtly try to be overpowered or to know more, and certainly wouldn't be happy about it, right? It's one thing to say, look, everybody wants to play Curse of Strahd. I've actually already played it once. But I can role play my way through it, and I'll try to be quiet about it. It's another thing to say, oh, we're playing Curse of Strahd. I'm going to go buy the module and read everything so I know more than everybody else, right? And similarly, it's one thing to have a character who's unbalanced because D&D didn't balance the classes right, and you don't realize it, and you're playing the character, and you're like, gee, this is a little overpowered. It's another thing to be like, yes, I'm glad I'm overpowered. I want to play this overpowered thing so that I can be overpowered. A good player shouldn't want to be overpowered, shouldn't want to unbalance the game or the party. Okay, let's talk to our contact. These are quick missions, so we'll keep going. Bear with me, Quintessence. Let's have a theory. We know that Vanessa DeVore was a humble student and got mixed up with a mask containing the soul of Giovanna Scaldi. Well, could it be that Giovanna if we could defeat Giovanna herself upon the psychic plane, would Vanessa return to the way she was? So we're going to take the monocle to Penelope Yin and see if we can get her to calibrate it. Can you imagine how long those missions would be if we had to defeat everybody in those missions? That would have been 3 different episodes instead of the first half of one episode. Sure, I can mess around with the monocle. And now we're going to defeat Jovana and her senses. So let's go ahead and auto-teleport to Fault Line, since that's like a couple of zones away. And we'll be there very quickly. And the column and the 5th column and the counselor are fighting over there. I always like the 5th column better because they're Nazis. And Nazis are great villains. And Council's fascists, they're pretty good villains too, but I mean, there's nothing more evil than Nazis, so. Alright, so this is defeat Giovanna and her defenses. So this is going to be a tough one. We've got plenty of inspiration, so we should be okay. I don't think her defenses means everybody, but it might. But let's see if we can find Giovanna. Usually, in this map, the enemy is toward the river over here. So let's see if we can find her. I'm going to perch up on the trees here. There she is. Looks like. Is that her? That's her. Okay, so we're going to clean up around here. We're going to have to defeat the guys around here anyway, and we don't want them getting involved in the fight, and then we will go take the fight to Giovanna. Yeah, I mean, I think if you listen back to all of the comments I've made about D&D and role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, it all boils down to not being selfish and being cooperative. And it's selfish and uncooperative to try and be more powerful than everybody else. And it is selfish and uncooperative to try and know more than all the other players know, right? I mean, who are you really impressing here? It's a game. Are you impressing the other players? No, you're probably annoying them by being overpowered, by knowing more than you're supposed to know. So I would say you don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is be cooperative, right? Try to help everybody have fun, right? And if you do that, you'll have more fun too. And I think that, I think Gygax is right. There is sort of this instinct in players to make their characters more and more powerful. Sure, you know, we put enhancements on this character to try and make her better. I mean, there is certainly an impulse as a player to try and improve your character, and that's what leveling up is all about, or gaining power points in champions, or advances in Savage Worlds or making skill advancement checks in Call of Cthulhu, right? It makes your character better, and we sure want that for our characters. But if you make your character too much better, then it's not going to be a challenge to play the game anymore, right? And again, that's going to probably bore you, and it's certainly going to bore the other players. So you always want to try to be cooperative. You always want to look at it with a critical eye, right? You're not the game master, maybe, but you still should be looking at it with a critical eye, saying, am I doing anything that could possibly be damaging the fun of other players, right? I mean, I think you definitely don't want to have to be told that. Told that what you're doing is ruining the experience of another player. You should be censoring yourself regarding that. You shouldn't have to be told what you're doing is stepping on the toes of another player. You should be assessing that on a regular basis, and if you're doing that, you should stop. And if you're being told that what you're doing is bothering or upsetting the other players, it's like you're being so selfish that you're not paying attention to the enjoyment of others. You should always be paying attention to other people and make sure they're having fun too. Right? It's not just the DM's job to do that, it's everybody's job. And if everybody does it, you'll all have fun. All right, so we're going to go ahead with our inspirations. Hopefully we won't need our panic power, but we might. Heal up. Panic power actually probably won't help us because she's doing psychic. But I might be able to lower her to hit a little bit. If we can floor her. Well, we can't floor her, but if we can reduce her enough, we definitely want to make sure we raise our to hit enough to hit her with the self-heal. And I should hit hasten here to make our auto-heal power come back faster. We don't want to miss, that's for sure. If we can avoid it. I missed again. Man, I am missing her a lot. She must be badly debuffing me. Yeah, psychic powers are really rough to fight against. Because you have no defenses against them. And if she catches me with the psychics while I'm in the middle of a shadow maul, I'm in trouble. Well, I've used all the inspirations I can, and we might die to this character. Let's go ahead and put on our panic power. I don't know if it's going to help, but we'll try. Nope, she's going to kill me, I think. Let's see if we can hit her a little more. Yeah, no, I don't think we're going to survive this. We'll try to hit our heal again. Yep, not enough. Maybe I got her, maybe. Yeah, we got her. Just barely, guys. I don't know if we're going to be able to defeat her as Vanessa DeVore in the final mission. I don't know. We're going to have to carry a bunch of purple pills in with us, I think. Alright, so we defeated her. Now we just got to defeat her annoying minions. I don't know how far out we have to go with this. But yeah, it's amazing how much, how easily one can solve many of the, shall we say, social problems of Dungeons and Dragons by being cooperative, right? If we think about the cases where players have refused to go on the adventures that the DM made for them, instead of being good cooperative players and going on them, again, just be cooperative, and you get to have an adventure, right? When we think about players who, I guess this is a defeat all, because we're so far from her now that, yeah, must be a defeat all. Lovely. When it comes to players being overpowered, again, if you just are cooperative and don't try to be overpowered, everybody has more fun, right? When it comes to players trying to force the party to do things they don't want to do, like when the party wants to negotiate and you have a player who wants to just stab everybody in the back. And they just do that even though they know the rest of the party wants to negotiate. Again, that's not being cooperative. So really the crux of all role-playing games is being cooperative with your fellow players and not trying to force your way of playing on the rest of the group, not trying to force your fun on everybody else, but finding a way to have fun together. That's the key. Oh, maybe we missed this one. I'm trying to stay near the river because I forgot that I was going to lose all of my endurance. One of my toggles actually stayed on. That's interesting. Shouldn't have. They should have all turned. There it goes. Okay. And now endurance is coming back, so we'll put the toggles back on. And let's swipe some of her endurance. Thank you. And it comes back really high, even from one target, because of all the endurance modification enhancers we put on it. So let's see. I'm trying to think how I'm going to do the inspirations for the actual final boss fight. So we did defeat Jovana Scaldi as a +3. Just ignore her for a while until she comes back. But I don't know if we're going to be able to defeat Vanessa DeVore when she's that high. We'll just have to see. I really hate these guys. Just because of the time waste of it, you know, unaffected. You can't, like, there's nothing else to do. You can't, there's no way to stop them from being that way, so you just have to wait them out. It's basically just a time sink. It doesn't make them any harder to fight. It just makes them take longer. In fact, they're one of the easiest lieutenant types to fight in terms of they don't do anything to you, right? They just sit there and annoy you. I guess they would be frustrating if you didn't have Mez defense, but fighting them with Mez defense just makes them utterly toothless. Give me some endurance. That power is pretty awesome now that it's fully enhanced with inventions. With the set. Alright guys, I'm going to keep doing this. I'll bring you back when we're ready to finish the mission. Alright folks, we are back. These are the last 3 carnies to defeat on this plane. It was in fact a defeat all. I wish it would just say that. Right? Defeat all carnies, and then underneath it could have said defeat Giovanna and her guards or whatever. So at least you know what you're going into. Then you know there's no point to going and finding her. You may as well defeat everybody else first. If you'll notice, I've changed up the inspirations a little bit. We're going to go with a full column of resists, a full column of lux. Run 2 of each at a time. I'm going to try to have 6 heals because we obviously need more heals. And we won't be worrying too much about the defense because we already have so much. We're going to have so much damage with Fury and everything else that I think will be okay. That's for when we fight Vanessa DeVore, because we won't have to use our inspirations against pretty much anybody else. Let's contact Harvey, who says, You did it, Quintessence Slash. You defeated the soul of Giovanna Scully. I can't believe it. But it's true, with Giovanna gone, I truly believe the Carnies will dissolve. Nope, they're not going to dissolve. The mission, the story arc is not over. We still have a couple more missions to do. But we will do those in the next episode. That may be the final episode, guys. I think there's basically one or two left. I'm not sure exactly how much is left in this story arc, but once we are done with this story arc and we have defeated Vanessa DeVore once and for all, either as a +3 or a +1 or whatever, that will be the end of this character, and then I will be working on doing some hardcore mode characters, and maybe I'll try doing a bunch of the character types that I never wanted to get to level 50, like blasters and stuff. I could survive a blaster for a while until it dies for the first time, and maybe I'll find that I enjoy it. Until next time, though, I am Scrabberlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server.